the locations that you'll need to know. And we'll have one more day of practice and then we'll go from there. Okay, so who is the pioneer of the valley living on the west side of the Susquehanna River? Who is that guy? Nicholas. Andrew Likens, yes. And who is another famous Pennsylvanian also living over there at the same time? Spec, please. Simon Girty, yes. And of course, he lived closer to the Susquehanna River, as you just took a look there. Why were Simon Girty and Andrew Likens kicked out of the West Side? That's the important question. Why were they kicked out? Peyton?
Because it was native territory and they just wanted to keep peace.
And who told? You're absolutely right. You got the concept down. Who told them that they had to leave? Again? The marshals, yes, at the directive of who? Good. The governor, yes. And that was Governor Hamilton at the time, yes. And of course, we ended with this, taking a look at Simon Girty. And you can see the historical marker.
Where's that at?
That is just on the other side of Route 15. If you know where the Little Buffalo Diner is by any chance, we can do a Google Earth and I'll show you. But it's just right there at the Juniata River where the Juniata dumps into the Susquehanna. Where you'll see that historical marker. Okay, so after spending time, and once again, draw your attention to the bottom right there, you see the spelling of the word. We'd probably say goal or gale, or I don't know what you'd say. That's actually jail. So Likens was put in jail. And one thing I did want to mention, don't forget, one of the other famous lawmen was Conrad Weiser, who came to remove Andrew Likens. Conrad Weiser, you may have heard of the Conrad Weiser School District. Okay, so after he gets out of jail, Andrew Likens moves to the Likens Valley. Okay? And now we get into, of course, more of the local history here. So he settles on a tract, it's about 200 acres. And if you look at that picture, you're probably familiar with it. Somewhat, anyway. Anybody familiar with that by any chance? Nobody's familiar. That is just south of 209. You can see what used to be the Valley Inn in the background, the Valley Inn restaurant. About 200 acre farm. Notice the spelling of Wiconisco. What you are looking at is actually the correct spelling. And I just want you to be a little familiar with that. Not that we're going to have spelling tests, but I just want you to understand the change in the translation from Native American to English. And that is Wiconisco. Obviously not the way we would pronounce those letters. Okay, but he's settling in what would be the village of Loyalty. Okay, so he's released from jail, removed to the eastern side. Obviously, today we would probably not say removed to the eastern side. We'd probably say moved to the eastern side. About 200 acres. Notice again, look at the third line. Northerly side, we'd say northern of the Wiconisco Creek. The family here made many improvements, clearly the land, and building houses. Now, what's with the misspelled words? Again, I want you to understand I'm using the primary source, which is not corrected. We would say clearing the land, not clearly. But nonetheless, that's what happened. How about that picture? Does that look familiar? Anybody ever play baseball in Loyal? Somewhat familiar. Okay. Back to hit him out of the park there. What you are looking at, by the way, if you see where the pavilion is on the right side of the picture, about right there is where the massacre took place. Okay? Right where the ball field is. You're looking at just on the other side of the run fence, field fence there, about right where that pavilion is. That's where it happened. What they were doing there, if you look, it's kind of under construction. They were actually putting a monument in there in honor of Brett Shadle, of course, Navy SEAL who was killed in the tragic training accident. We'll talk about that. Okay, Wiccanisco. Notice once again, here's another spelling. I'm not worried which one you write down, just so that you know there's different spellings. And more importantly, I want you to know this, what the word means. So let's read through this and then we'll summarize it. Okay, Teeter, if you would, please.
The Indian name for which is a corruption of the Delaware Wiccanisco signifies muddy or swampy house. Wick or wicku, meaning house, is the Delaware word from which wigwam is corrupted, and Essiku
Sounds good to me.
signifies muddy or swampy. The origin of the name, probably some Indians encamped along the creek where the bank was wet or muddy.
Okay, and that's what I want you to know. Muddy, damp, swampy house. Or dwelling, whichever word you want to use. Muddy or swampy. And that's what the word itself means. Muddy, damp, swampy house. Definitely, I want you to keep in mind that the creek gets its name from the Native Americans who camped along the creek. Now, before we go any further, since I mentioned the Native Americans living there, I want you to understand something. There were not a whole lot of Native Americans in the valley. Some, yes, but not a whole lot. And if you go up to Loyalton, you're talking about a handful, maybe 10, 20 total. And that would be about it. Okay, so why did he pick this territory? Well, there's a picture I'm sure you are familiar with. Now, we have to go back at a time in the 1750s when, yeah, you might have had a plow, but you would not have had John Deere steel-bladed plow. And about the only way you're going to actually plow the land is to let nature take its course. Well, if you take a look at where that is, does anybody know what's to the right side there? On the right picture. Yes, that's where the Wiccanisco Creek is. Well, when that floods, which it will, and you've probably seen it in your lifetime, it's not a great environment for trees to grow, except right alongside. So what I'm telling you is, as you look at number one, you have a good water table, which obviously crops love water. Number two, it's relatively level. And number three, you don't have to plow it, and you don't have to do any type of brush clearing because it's already treeless. So that's why Andrew Likens wants to live here. And that's what I want you to know.
That's the only problem with having crops. If we get too much rain, flood.
And you got to hope that your rains and your flooding don't happen after you planted in the summer, which definitely is a concern. The 1972 flood actually hit in June, so that would have been after the crops were planted. That definitely is a concern. You just hope that the flooding would happen maybe this time of year, or in the early spring when the falls happen.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like what they're saying is going to happen this week. We're going to have a big fall, Wednesday, Thursday. It's supposed to get cold again. But you might see the snow gone, especially if you get an inch of rain on top of it, which can get dangerous. Something to think about.
I saw somewhere that like February is supposed to be like above normal temperatures.
That I did see also, which has happened before.
Yeah.
Now there's something else very important there. If you look at the bottom left of that picture, does anybody know what that is? Something that's right along the road. It's the guardrail. So here's my question. What road is that? That's 209. Okay, so let me show you this. We're talking about just out beyond the home run fence is where Andrew Likens, the massacre took place, and the ball field is actually part of his farm. Okay, and I showed you this on the Google Earth. I mentioned this before. You're talking about this rectangle right here. Okay, is his home. Yes, the sewer plant's there, and right here is where his ball field is. Now here's 209 coming down. There's a reason why 209 is very significant. Why would he build there? We already established the water, the flooding, the natural fertilization that you get from the flooding. There's something else. Think primitive. We need water. What else do we need? Don't make it too hard. Say again? Well, we need roads, yeah. There's something else we need.
Sunlight.
Say again?
Sunlight.
Sunlight, agreed. Okay, all those are right. I was thinking something really basic. I'll put myself out there. Something you can tell I love. Food, there we go. Well, Route 209, you may not have ever heard this before, which I'm kind of surprised. There's something else really big about Route 209. By the way, that's the Schaefer farm there who owns it now. And that would be all right in Andrew Lyken's farm. And that would be about the end of it. That's back on the other side of the creek, back at the mountains. Okay, so all these pictures I'm showing you is where the farm is. Now, what makes 209 important? Well, 209 was actually a game trail, and I do want you to know that. We're talking going back 30,000 years. Route 209 was a game trail. And if you've ever hunted, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Although sometimes I think we're supposed to work a little better than what they actually do. Yeah, some of you have been down that road. You understand what I'm saying. But this was actually a game trail. And over the years, when they do road construction, in fact, when they put the road in 209, they actually did remove many wild animal bones. And I'm talking by the truckloads, because of the animals that used it. The last time that they actually found a lot was out by Pottsville. They're actually putting a big intersection there. If you've ever been on 209, anybody ever come from Pottsville in this way? Did you ever drive right through that stop sign? I never understood why that stop sign is on 209. You'd think the main road wouldn't have a stop sign. But they have accidents there all the time. Well, right where that stop sign is, the stop sign should be in the other road. But right there, when they put the big interchange in, they were literally digging up what they thought were woolly mammoth bones. Okay? Right on 209. So he's got food, he's got water, and he's got great environment to grow crops. And that I want you to know for 209. Okay. Now, not just Andrew Lykens, I want you to be a little familiar with some other names. Okay? One guy we already talked about, John Peter Huffman, but let's talk about the guy there on the left. This guy I do want you to know, John Rewalt. John Rewalt. He actually lived just on the other side of 209. On the north side, on the Gratz side, if you will. On his farm lived an unnamed black settler. Now, think this through. It is very likely that that unnamed black settler was absolutely. And I do want you to understand that. Notice Ludwig Schott over here, which today we say Shutt, also had an unnamed black settler living with him. Chances are they were both slaves. We don't know that for a fact, but it's highly likely. See, records of that stuff just didn't happen. Okay? Now, let me also point out something else up here. And by no means am I going to ask you to write all this down. Protestant, Huguenot, assistant, all that. But take notice to this: Protestant here and Protestant over there. Going back to world history, what happens if you are not the same religion of the king?
Jailed. Jailed.
Jailed or executed. Let's say it this way: you're definitely considered an enemy of the king. And that's why a lot of these people settled here. And that's the point I want you to know. I'm not worried you write down sectarian or things like that. But I do want you to know many of the settlers came here to escape the religious struggles, religious strife. And two of the most famous, John Rewald, Ludwig Schott, and of course, Andrew Likens. On the way to the special place, on the left side of the road, 2 houses this way on Main Street. Terry Shutt lives there now. And his 4th great grandfather was Ludwig Schott. Now, is that a relative of Mr. Shutt? I don't know, but it's quite possible. Very possible. Okay? So you got Likens, Rewalt, Schott. There's our main character in this whole thing, Andrew Likens. Notice once again the spelling of his name. And we'll pause with this for today. Pick up from here tomorrow.